Hi and welcome to Sparkle Time.
Hello gorgeous sparkly people. Today I am so honoured to be a part of the Purple Vibes Hop. Now it's where some amazing artists have gotten together and all created stunning projects with the colour purple involved somewhere. Now all you need to do to enter and win one of the fabulous prizes provided by our just so many amazing sponsors is subscribe to each channel and like the videos and leave a comment. And I'm going to show you how to create a mixed media folding triptych panel. Now triptych just means 3 parts. So I have a main panel and then 2 closing sections which will be the little doors. So welcome to the Purple Vibes blog hop. So I've got a matte wood panel here and then I've cut 2 little panels to size so that they fit over the front like this. Now the first step is going to be to cover the back of each piece with this awesome sticky bark from Expressit, and then I'm going to whitewash this so it looks like whitewashed timber. Now this is really quite sticky, so it'll be perfect. Now this stuff is actually real wood, so you have to be a bit careful when trimming it so it doesn't split. Make sure you're using some nice sharp scissors. And now I have what looks like 3 wooden panels. Now, if there are any sort of scruffy little bits, you can either trim it off or grab some sandpaper and sand it back. I've got some white gesso and a water brush, and I'm just going to add a little bit to my craft sheet here. Add a bit of water and apply this as a wash over the panels. So this both tones down the red colour and gives it the whitewashed look. Remember to add the water each time or else you'll just be using it as paint. And you won't get that beautiful thin translucent quality that lets the wood behind peek through. Now if it's still too pink for you, go and add another layer. And just keep adding some of these opaque layers. So for me it's probably going to need 3 or 4 layers to knock back some of that gorgeous red colour that's in the sticky bark from Expressit, and this one's cherry, so of course it's got that pinky red tint. Now this will actually be the back of my panels, and the reason I'm doing this now is because I won't be able to do it later. So I'm just going to dry this wash of gesso off with a heat gun. Just so the edges aren't white, I'm adding some archival ink. Alright, I still want it to be a little bit whiter, so I'm just going to dry brush on a bit of gesso. And of course if you'd like a little bit more of the timber to show through, just grab a baby wipe. That way you get it whiter, but still have some of that gorgeous timber showing. Now I'm going to add matte medium over here. I'm going to add this to both sides because I need to seal it. So wait for this side to dry and then flip the piece over and apply the matte medium to the back of the piece as well. That way both sides will be sealed. Alright, so while the matte medium is drying on this side, which of course is the back, I'm going to add 2 Lindy sprays. Pop Rock Purple and Teapot Purple. I'm just going to dry this. So my hope was that this would sort of settle in the brush strokes and create extra texture. It did. So now I'm just going to flick the Teapot Purple over the top. Now it's not completely dry, but for this next step that doesn't matter quite so much, as long as it's not sopping wet. So I'm just flattening any little bits of glue here. Sometimes the matte medium bubbles up when you dry it with a heat gun. Okay, now what I'm going to do is add a little bit of crackle paste. Now this is Range's opaque crackle paste. And I'm just going to add it around the edges. Now it needs to be thinner towards the middle because I am doing something special there later. So thick towards the edges, thin towards the middle, if any. Now, because I haven't sealed my Lindy's, this is going to colour the crackle paste a little, which is pretty cool. And I'll get a little touch of purple. Okay, so I'm just going to do that on the other panels as well. I'm just running the palette knife around the edge because I don't want any yucky sort of dangly, daggy bits. I want it right up to the edge, but not over it. Okay, gotta let that set. The crackle paste is dry and has taken on some of the colour from the Lindy's, so it looks great. So now it's time to start doing the other side. And I'm going to start this off by using some matte medium to stick some lace on, and that will be my first layer of texture. Alright, so that's the two little side panels. Then let this base coat dry for a while. Now that the lace has been glued down, it's time to decide where you would like the rest of your elements. So I have my main image, and I'm just going to add a whole batch of decorative little pieces around it. And I'm going to use glossy accents and then let that dry completely. So I haven't glued any of this down, it's all just sort of sitting where I want it. And I've got the main image just sort of propped up so it's not touching the background, so I can add things underneath. So now that I've got those main elements down, it's just a matter of figuring out where I want the other little components. Now the next step, once all of the collaged elements are dry, is to add white gesso over the top. And I'm going to do that on here and on the front two panels. Now the key to this step is to use a stiff brush and to try and work the gesso into the texture without filling it. Now, because some of these pieces are brass, if you would like some of the metal to show through, just grab a baby wipe, and while the gesso is still wet, you can either dab or wipe at it, and it reveals some of the brass again. If you take too much off, just dab it again. And remember to rotate the baby wipe so that you don't spread paint around. And if you do it right, you can reveal the most beautiful patterns. I'll show it to you when it's dry. Now to let it all dry. Okay, now that my creation has dried overnight, it's time to add some colour. And the little spinning propeller still works, and you can see that just taking some of the paint off these brass elements has made them really stand out, and they will continue to stand out as I add more layers. So at this stage the texture looks reasonably boring. There's not a lot going on because it's all been painted white. It's time to add some colour. The first layer will be Urban Amethyst, so I'm just going to spritz both sides and then dry with a heat gun. Now I'm going to add a hint of Moonlit Mulberry, and this will help make the colours not quite so bright. So because it's a vintage brown tone, it'll knock it back a little. And I'm not going to add it everywhere, I'm just going to sort of add it in spots. Okay, and again dry with heat gun. Next I'm going to add Toto's Tornado Black to add a bit more depth. So you can see now having the moon shadow mist against the purple gives it different tones. The black will help darken it. Alright, now that I have beautiful dark areas and lots of yummy colour, it's time to start adding a few additional colours. So I'm going to add French Lilac Violet and Witch's Potion Purple because they both have different shimmer colours. And I'm just going to add these by tapping the tail onto my little piece here. And then the same with the French Lilac Violet. And by this stage you've figured out I'm drying between every layer of colour. And you can start to see the shimmer from those Lindy's sprays that I've just tapped into some areas. And that's what I'm going to be doing for the next two colours as well, just so it's not so all purple. If you have a little bit of something else in there, you get the most gorgeous results. Just look at that shimmer, isn't that beautiful? It's even prettier in real life. So next I'm going to be using Tibetan Poppy Teal and Time Travel Teal. And I'm going to apply these the same way, so just sort of dot them on. Now I don't want to add quite as much of the teals because it's sort of my highlight colour, not my main colour. But I've also found the teal and the purple look beautiful together. So that was the Tibetan Poppy and this is the Time Travel. Isn't that looking yummy? But it needs a third colour. So far I've got purples and greens standing out, but to offset this, I'm going to add some orange, or in this case, Wild Honeysuckle and Cowbunga Copper. And again, I'm just using the same technique, so I'm just going to take the tip off the bottle, after giving it a good shake of course, and dot it on and flick it on so that it's kind of random. So I'll start with Wild Honeysuckle. And now for the Cowbunga Copper. Now Cowbunga Copper is bright and awesome, so that's really going to add a pop. Now just to make sure that the purple really shines through, I've got a little of the Art Alchemy paint, and I have Frozen Berries and Crocus Fields. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of this, mostly onto the flowers I think. And I'm just going to add a tiny pop of metallic Gold Rush on the centre of those flowers. Up to this point it's all been prep. This is where the fun really starts and you begin to see the elements and the individual items pop out from the background. So I have some Inca Gold. You could also use the metallic wax from Finnabar. Now I like applying this with my finger because I can get a really good and light coverage. Alright, so first add the Inca Gold metallic wax to the crackle on the back of each panel, then flip the panels over and add the metallic wax to the texture on the front. And this will pick out the patterns in the lace, and it will also highlight the individual elements that have been added to the mixed media background. It will also beautifully contrast with the shimmer from the Lindy sprays, making your background really absolutely stunning. Wait till you see this when it's finished. It's at this point I find out that it's not completely dry yet. Oops. Now I like to cover the whole thing because you never know which bit will be seen. Now while those other elements are drying, grab a beautiful piece of ribbon, and I'm using a lovely printed piece of ribbon here from Seven Gypsies, and I'm colouring it with Teapot Purple and some of that Inca Gold. Now adding the Inca Gold while it's wet will mean that instead of highlighting the texture, I get a beautiful gold shimmer. Now once you've covered the panels with the metallic wax, or at least the textural parts, it's time to add some of the additional elements. And for me that is the words, the little light bulb element, and finally the image. Now the image I've mounted onto a piece of cardboard first, so it's got a little bit more structural integrity to it, a nice thick piece of cardstock, and then I've cut that out so that you can't really see the cardstock behind. You might like to embellish the edges of the image with a little of that gold wax so it suits the panel, or even change the colours on the image, but that's completely up to you. Now when that's dry, I can either trim those extra little black pieces off or leave them on there to help it stand out from the background. I'll see how it looks. Now you'll need to leave this panel to dry at least overnight, preferably a couple of days, just so that all of that moisture from the sprays is set. And once that's completely dry all the way through, give it a quick spray with some workable matte fixative, just so that none of the sparkly bits shift. So I've got some copper wire and I've made a little twisty wreath with it. So I've just lifted up this little head section. I've tucked this beautiful copper behind here. Just going to pop it back down. And that just helps frame that gorgeous face. Now I just need to add a tiny little bit to hold down this. Now one of the last things I'm going to do is add some of these gorgeous little beads here. I might need to do this in multiple layers to allow time for that nice little copper circle to dry. So I've added 2 little word stickers, and to make sure they stay on and to highlight them, I'm just going to add some glossy accents. Alright, so it's time to attach the ribbon to the back of the panel, and this is what's going to close it and hold it open. So I've just added 2 little marks along the halfway point here, and I'm just going to add hot glue. I'm just going to use the same hot glue to add this cute little metallic plaque to the front here. So I've got a cute little buckle here, and I'm just going to attach it. A bit more of that hot glue, that little piece of ribbon over, and tuck it in at the back. And that way I will have a cute little closure for my cover. And there we have it. This is my folding triptych panel, and I hope you enjoyed it. And you can see the beautiful shimmer and texture on each of the side panels. And it says, remember, believe in yourself every day. Isn't that pretty? So yum. Amazing texture, beautiful image. Made just for a special friend of mine. I hope you've enjoyed my mixed media folding triptych panel. And remember, subscribe and leave a comment on each video to enter the draw and win some amazing prizes. I hope you enjoy all of the gorgeous projects created for you in the Purple Vibes Pop, and I'll be back with more very soon.